Hey, for Friday, Acts 18, I got it split up into two parts. We'll do part one. Just to let you know, I got to pick up Morgan today from the hospital. If I didn't tell you before, she got her back surgery done and everything was a success. They put two rods up the back and her back can't curve anymore, and we're really happy with it. She's in a lot of pain. She's hating us right now for having her have it done, but it's because every movement hurts. So she can tell you every little dip in the road from Seattle to Linden because every little one hurt. All right, so let's go to Acts 18, verse 1. This is in Corinth. What we last left Paul with was he was in Athens and he was debating with, the top minds of the world at the time. And now he's going to Corinth. And Corinth would have been quite a leading city in the area. It's on an isthmus, and if you remember what that means in geography with Mrs. Van probably, or in 5th grade, it's a narrow piece of land like Panama is between North America and South America, and Corinth is right on an isthmus there, and I'll show you later on a map, but it was important because ships would come in there, they would unload their stuff on Corinth, and then they would actually, by donkey or whatever, over land, take the goods across and then put them on a ship on the other side and then go to places like Ephesus and so on. And you might ask, why didn't they sail around? It was really dangerous. The sea was dangerous, and also is heavily it was heavy with pirates around the bottom there. Had to do a little research on that as to why that would be the case, but I'll show you that on the map a little more clearly. Corinth, being a city that would be very much like a city today in the United States. Very cosmopolitan. People from all over the place. Lots of different jobs. Very busy. On the cutting edge of things, like a Seattle. Has all sorts of viewpoints all over the place, and that's kind of good and bad. The good part about that is like in Athens, they will honor something new or different that you have to say as long as you make a good point. So Paul gets there, and he first meets Priscilla and Aquila, and Priscilla's the girl's name, Aquila's the guy's name, and they had been booted out of Rome. Now, why would that have been? Well, if we look at actually Roman history, they said underneath the reign of Claudius, the emperor, that the Christians were raising a tumult, which means they were disturbing the peace. So instead of just killing them all like Nero would have done, they booted them out and they had to go to other places. So this couple ended up in Corinth, and they were tent makers. So since Paul was also a tent maker, they hung out and they talked and they worked together, and it went really well. And every day it said that he went to the synagogue to reason, Paul did, to try to persuade the Jews and the Greeks. And then later on, Silas and Timothy met him, because remember they were up in Berea in the Macedonia area, and they come down and meet him. And when those guys come down, he can dedicate a little bit more of his time to preaching. Maybe they are helping with some of the work to sort of feed them as well, or just three guys are better than one. And then the Jews really get upset with them, and just like in many of these cases, the Jews get jealous, they boot them out, and it doesn't go well with them, and then they usually leave town. But in this case, he went all the way to next door, is what it says. And it says, from now on I will go to the Gentiles, in verse 6. Then Paul left the synagogue and went next door to the house of Titius Justus, very Greek names because it ends with an us, a worshiper of God. Crispus, the synagogue ruler, and his entire household believed in the Lord, and many of the Corinthians who heard him believed and were baptized. So the leader of the synagogue, the ruler of the synagogue, went over there with him as well. And we'll learn that they obviously replaced him later. And then the Lord gives him a vision and basically says, you know what, Paul, I got lots of people in this town. You're going to be okay here for a while. Don't fear. Just go all out here at Corinth. No one's going to harm you. Well, he spends a year and a half there, and for Paul, that's an eternity. He's always, he's like got adult ADD, and he just wants to go on to the next place, the next place, the next place. So he spends a year and a half there, which probably was quite not as relaxing as it is just a load off, saying, hey, maybe I can finally just stay in a spot for a while. And then there's a guy whose name is Gallio, who was the proconsul, so the judge, the ruler of the area of Achaia. I'm not even quite sure I ever say that right, but it's the region in which Corinth is in. And this guy charges Paul with persuading people to worship God in ways contrary to the law. Now remember, this is the Greco-Roman law. We're under Rome, but they have more of laws like we have in the United States nowadays. And before Paul's actually going to defend himself, this Gallio, who was described as a very, very fair person according to Roman records, just rips these Jews, especially the guy that brought him to the court, and said, if this guy had a serious crime charged against him, or just a misdemeanor, that's like he, pickpocketed somebody, then I'd take this seriously. But when you're just talking about stuff with your own laws and your own gods, you're going to bother me with that? And he throws it out of court. And the Jewish people who were jealous, were so mad at the guy who was trying to convict Paul. Like, you dummy, you didn't convict him the right way. They beat him. They beat their own guy right in front of the judge, and the judge said, he's getting what he deserves. Anyway, that's what happened in the first part of Acts 18, and we'll get to the rest of the part where he starts heading home in part 2. If we look at the study guide, it says he was tired of the treatment received from the Jews, so what did he do about it? He went to the Gentiles. He went next door to the Gentiles. And number 2, what happened when the Jews tried to convict him of a crime? Well, their lawyer, the guy that tried to convict him, got beat up. And the judge really didn't care. All right, I'll do part 2 next.